Hello, and welcome to Accelerating SAP Data with Modern Sustainable Infrastructure. Today's webinar is sponsored by Pure Storage and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special Friday event. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in our webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to the questions there during the live event, we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you asked today. A Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be experiencing. A browser refresh is going to fix most audio or video issues that you might have, but if that doesn't work, just let us know in the Q&A, and we'll work with you to get everything running. Second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. I especially want to call your attention to the link to a great one-page PDF from Pure about the top 10 reasons you want Pure Storage solutions for your SAP applications. Also in there are links to the Gorilla Guide Book Club, where you can get access to Actual Tech Media's great printed resources on technology topics, as well as a link to the ATM Event Center, which has our calendar of upcoming events. I encourage you to access all those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $300 Amazon gift card to one lucky attendee on the live event. You must be in attendance during this live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. Finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. So to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. At the end of the event, we'll look at all the questions, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. And with that, let's get to today's fantastic content. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today from Pure Storage. We have Nihal Marashi and Ryan Arsenault. Nihal is a principal product marketing manager, while Ryan is a field solutions architect specializing in SAP solutions for Pure Storage. So now I'm going to turn things over to Nihal.
Thank you for the introductions. Hello and welcome everyone. In the next few minutes, Ryan and I are going to share some best practices on how you can optimize your SAP data with modern sustainable infrastructure. So we got a great agenda for you. We'll start off with just an overview of the landscape. I'll share with you some details about Pure Storage, especially for the folks who have not heard about Pure Storage. Then we'll switch gears and we'll talk about some best practices when it comes to reducing TCO for SAP HANA. We'll talk about ransomware and the fact that it's been dominating headlines and what you can do about that. Then we'll talk about workload consolidation, which is a hot topic, especially in the context of the data growth. And lastly, I want to share with you some details about what Pure is doing at Sapphire and some of the steps that you can take. All right, so let's start off by talking about the ongoing trend in the industry. You know, we've seen the explosion of data and the massive data growth in the past few years. And what that means is that our world has become more outcome-based, and it's driven by data, and data, you hear about companies taking data-driven decisions. And we see that shift also from products to outcomes, right? It's no longer just about what kind of products and features you can provide to your customers. It's about, you know, how can you help them achieve their outcomes? And these outcomes are typically measured, and they, you get to see the actual impact, and how do you help your customers accomplish those outcomes? Now, infrastructure has a role to play in helping companies achieve those outcomes, but more often than not, infrastructure can be a bottleneck, especially if you've got aging infrastructure that's been there for a long time and it's not designed for modern needs. And this is true for storage systems just as much as other pieces of infrastructure. The demands on storage have been increasing in recent years, especially with the move to modern applications and move away from the monolithic application architectures. And what we find is slow storage performance can hamper application deployment. For example, if you cannot provide fresh production data to your dev and test teams to kind of build on the application development, it certainly impacts the time to market. We also know that data is expanding. There's an explosive data growth. What that really means is data volumes are obviously growing, but at the same time, there are data center footprint constraints, right? And if you have certain power and space goals for your data center, you want to make sure that the storage systems that you have can adhere to that. And last but not the least, ransomware has been dominating headlines. We know that this is a increasing threat for a lot of companies that want to protect their data. And so what this really means from a storage perspective is that as companies are struggling to expand their capacity, be able to meet the data growth and update for new technologies, they need systems that can kind of meet these modern needs. And this is something that we at Pure believe we can help organizations with. And for folks who have not heard about Pure, I wanted to share some details about our company. We are a $2 billion company. We are in the business of providing modern storage and simple storage. We have more than 10,000 customers worldwide, which includes a number of Fortune 500 companies. On the Gartner Magic Quadrant, we have been a leader for 8 years for flash storage arrays. And one of the metrics that I'm really proud of is our Net Promoter Score, which is 85.2, and it's in the top 1% of business-to-business companies. So for those of you who are not familiar with Net Promoter Score, it's essentially a survey that's conducted by an independent entity that asks customers, would they be willing to recommend Pure to their colleagues, to their partners, to their friends, or whoever. And this gives us a gauge of where Pure stands versus our peers. So as I mentioned, we have solutions for a modern, sustainable infrastructure when it comes to modernizing applications. With Portworx, we have one of the best Kubernetes data storage platform. We have Cloud Block Storage, which is for public providers, and we have FlashBlade, our unified fast file and object storage. And also from a modernizing operations, we have the ability to do predictive storage capacity planning through Pure One with our AI and ML modeling. We have flexible consumption-based storage offerings, Pure Storage as a service. And lastly, from a infrastructure modernization, we have our flagship flash array product line along with FlashBlade. So certainly we are in a position to provide this modern data infrastructure. Now, the other aspect that is top of mind for I'm sure everyone on this call is sustainability. This is your customers demand sustainable operations, and at Pure we've right from our founding, we've built sustainable low carbon footprint technology and we address it in a number of ways, right? One is the actual storage density itself, which we address by kind of reducing our physical and carbon footprint by the means of the data reduction technologies and other things that we do to kind of reduce the overall footprint for storage. We also have energy efficient designs which kind of reduce the overall power consumption. And then the last but not the least is our kind of non-disruptive modular design, which reduces e-waste. And we actually have recently come up with a environmental and sustainability goal report. It's actually our inaugural report, and you can read more about Pure's approach to sustainability at the link that's provided in this slide. Okay, so in the last few slides, we talked about the industry trends. We talked about how Pure is positioned to providing modern, sustainable data infrastructure. But what does that really mean for you as a SAP customer? So I'm going to turn over to Ryan. Ryan, I know Pure and SAP have been partners for a long time. Why don't you walk us through, essentially what is Pure's value addition for SAP environments?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nihal. Appreciate it. So Pure, like as you said, Pure and SAP, we've had a partnership for, geez, I'd say probably about 6 or 7 years now. As Pure started becoming, a bigger storage company, we knew we wanted to move into more of the application space, the enterprise space, and SAP being, one of the biggest ones out there, we thought we would partner, closely with SAP. About 3 years ago, we were invited to be an SAP Platinum Partners. So what that really means is it is an invite-only partnership from SAP and is an elite partner status. And SAP internally can actually only buy from these elite partners. So it just shows that SAP saw the value of our storage products, and they wanted to take a closer look at maybe using us internally as well. With that, we have a dedicated staff in Waldorf, right, in the competency center directly on SAP's campus, working with SAP constantly, building that relationship even further, and we're going to continue to build that relationship with SAP. And right now, we're up over 1,200 customers that are trusting Pure to put their mission critical SAP systems on. On top of that, we continue to innovate, right? We are innovating constantly around SAP, both with ourselves as well as with some of our partners. We've done a lot, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. We've done a lot with warm data tiering using HANA NSE, so native storage extension. Our snapshots are second to none, and the ability to be able to automate things like copy clones, which is so hard for every SAP customer to have to do. And then data protection, right? You want to make sure your data is not only available, but is protected in case something doesn't go wrong. And we'll get in a little bit more about how we do that. And to Nihal's earlier point, this just leads to better outcomes, right? People are looking for outcomes. They're not looking for storage. They're looking for, how can my infrastructure do better for me and make managing an SAP platform, which is already complex as it is, how does this infrastructure help me manage that better, right? And we'll talk a little bit about really what that means by reducing HANA costs. HANA is a great platform, but it's expensive. It's expensive to run. Memory is expensive. Licensing can be expensive. How do we help reduce that cost? Capacity planning, right? You always, the hardest part for a storage administrator is to know when someone needs storage. He's usually the last one to find out. How can we eliminate those challenges through things like Pure as a Service? And then we know your ERP system is probably the crown jewel of your IT assets. It simply cannot go down. It costs you money when it goes down. So we make sure that we built into this platform no downtime, whether planned or unplanned. We are able to do things non-disruptively while we're up and running at 100% performance, and that includes upgrades of the OS, upgrades of the actual infrastructure. We simply don't go down. We're pretty proud of that. So let's jump into a few details. So snapshots, first of all, snapshots are what I love to talk about to SAP application teams. They are essentially an instantaneous copy of your database. Let's just at a high level for SAP, that's what we're looking to do here. And this really allows you to do a number of things. One, these snapshots are mobile, right? So you can take copies of your database. Say you want to take a snapshot of your production database and use it to refresh your test environment. Nihal mentioned how hard that can be. You need production data in your IT environments to be able to understand how to support that platform. Being able to take snapshots and moving that over to your test environment and using that as your basis of data for your test environment is one of the things that we can do here. And because we do deduplication at a global level across the array, you can take a snapshot of your production database and use it 500 times, create 500 environments or more. And they don't take up any other space on the array, right? Because we deduplicate everything. It's only when you start using them that they're going to start taking up some space. So that's a huge savings already, right? Now you're able to maybe create more environments, but use up less space, a strange concept, but that's just what we do here at Pure Storage. And I can go through a number of different scenarios of why these snapshots are important and how you can use these snapshots in your day-to-day routines. I'm happy to talk about that further. If anybody finds me at Sapphire, we can definitely get into it. But one thing I do want to hit on, if you go to next slide, Nihal, is that copy clone refresh process, right? It's very, very hard to do. It is a very manual process. Companies are struggling automating this, and getting the data, getting access to that data in your production environment is usually one of the hardest parts. Usually you go through a backup process, right? Where you're streaming a backup and it takes 8, 10, 12 hours to get that data actually just there usable. With Pure Storage, not only can you get that data snapped and moved immediately, but we have open APIs around all these processes that now allow you to start to add some automation, right? Let's maybe do some scripting around what your process looks like. And this process looks differently for every single SAP customer out there, but it's basically, at a high level the same, right? You have all these activities you need to do. And in the middle, you need to get the data. Right? You can now automate that data grabbing through our APIs, create new environments, create new volumes on the array, and then concentrate on trying to automate some of those harder tasks, like those post-copy activities, the BDLS, the things that take your basis team the longest amount of time to be able to get this environment up and running for their users. And let's be honest, you probably don't do this as often as your business asks you to do, because it's such a hard process, such a manual, error-prone process. Adding automation is going to just free up activities. It's going to let you do this more often, and then it's going to lead to a less buggy and a more available platform, because you're going to have real business data in your test environment and even your dev environment to be able to recreate things that your users are doing. One example of this on the next slide, Nihal, is our dear company customer, AgroSuper. AgroSuper is a Chilean food company. They do everything through ECC, the giant 21 terabyte Oracle database that they have running, really everything, the shop floor, the packaging of their meat, all runs through SAP. They were, this 21 terabyte database, their refresh copy was taking them 9 days. It was a horrible process. It was so hard for them to be able to get through. We worked with them on automation, and now they're down to about 20 minutes. And that includes running BDLS, because BDLS will run faster on our fast all-flash storage as well. So now they do it weekly, right? Weekly, you can have an up-to-date copy of your test data in your test environment, of your production data in your test environment. That's huge, right? That, I don't know an ABAPer or a business analyst in the world that doesn't want real-time business data in their test environment. So, just things like this that we're bringing to our customers at Pure. Now, changing it up a little bit, we're going to go a little bit more into reducing cost. Like I mentioned before, SAP HANA can be expensive to run, right? It runs all in memory. Memory is still very, very expensive. PMEM has made that a little bit easier, right? Being able to scale up your compute memory boxes a little bit bigger at a little bit lower of a cost, but still, having all that data in memory constantly is a burden, right? Especially if you're not accessing that data all the time. Right? Why am I storing all this data, these 6-year-old IDOC data, for example, in my production environment in memory if it's not ever getting access? This is where native storage extension really comes in. SAP's latest and greatest and really simplest data tiering strategy for HANA. So we've done a lot of testing on this, and the way it really works is you can, at a granular level, at the table level, at an attribute level, at a column level, you can say, I want this data to load into memory, and I want this data to stay in storage. And HANA is smart enough to know when a query comes in where it has to go to access that data based off a buffer cache in the memory layer, as well as your hot data that's directly in DRAM and PMEM. And what this does is now allows you to say, you know what, maybe I don't want to load that 6-year-old IDOC data that I never access into memory. Keep it out. And if I ever do need to access it, I'll have a little bit more latency than I would out of DRAM, but who cares? Because I'm not accessing it that often. And customers are really starting to gravitate towards this as databases get bigger and as memory costs stay the same or even get more expensive. People are looking at ways to reduce their growth on their SAP database. At the same time, maybe even reduce their licensing as well, because a lot of customers will license their HANA based on how much memory they're taking up in production. So we came in, and we go to the next slide, Nihal. We came in and we took it a step further, right? We have really good performance on top of out of our flash array, but managing what's in memory, what's not in memory becomes hard, right? And that's where Pure Storage Direct Memory Cache really comes in. Our friends at Intel supply us with these Optane memory storage class memory drives that go directly into the storage layer, and we've built in our software a way to be able to cache your HANA database when you need it to be cached, right? So maybe now you have an end of quarter run where you are going to be accessing some old data that you've tiered out of memory and into the storage layer, where now you can cache it directly in the Intel Optane and still get 90% of your performance without having to then load it all into DRAM. Win-win, right? So now you're still able to get that near like DRAM performance. 90% is pretty fast at a fraction of the cost, because no longer are you going to have to build out a giant memory box to be able to store all this data, and maybe you're saving on licenses as well. So customers are really starting to gravitate towards this, and we'll continue to innovate in this area as well. So going next, let's talk a little bit about backup and ransomware. And next slide, Nihal, there's a time where you couldn't, I don't know if we're getting numb to it now, but there was a time last summer where you couldn't, I think I woke up every morning to another ransomware story, right? Large companies, small companies, 69% of companies here in the States have reported being affected by ransomware. That's huge, right? It's happening. An attack happens every 11 seconds throughout the world. And the average demand for how much money they're looking for is well over $350,000. And companies are paying this, right? Because they need access to their data. One attack that we learned about was an oil and gas company where they actually had to pay $30 million to get their data back. Right. And the cost of this downtime where you're not getting new business in, it just continues to add on and add on and add on. So Pure comes in on the next slide, Nihal. Pure comes in, and we really have a solution for this. We will protect your data, right? I've talked about snapshots a little bit in the past. Well, our ransomware safe mode snapshots is helping protect your mission critical SAP system, right? And if you think about ransomware attackers, right, they would love to go after your SAP system because, as I mentioned before, it's the crown jewel. You're probably going to pay to be able to get your data back. With our safe mode snapshots, no longer do you have to worry about that, right? These snapshots are completely protected from deletion by you, by us, by someone, an attacker into your system, or even by a bad actor within your corporation who maybe had a bad day and wants to go delete some stuff. It takes both of us together to be able to delete these. And now when you have an attack, before it's very simple to set these up, and now they're very easy to recover, and you can recover very, very fast, right? Within seconds, to be able to get your data back up and running, and get your system back up and running without having to worry about negotiating and paying with a threat who's come into your system and stolen your data. The next one, Nihal. And I talked about rapid restore, right? Obviously, the snapshots are very fast to restore, right? Seconds to be able to get a snapshot back and up and running and connect it over to a host. But we also worry about your backup and protection that you do, let's say, on a nightly basis, right? Anybody can really back up. Backing up is usually not the problem. It's when you try to go use that backup and your infrastructure team tells you at this rate it's going to take 19 days to get your backup full and running before, again, 19 days is a long time, especially if you're answering the phone from the CIO about when you're going to be back up and running. If you've had that call before, I'm sorry. We focus on that restore, right? Because we know that that's the critical point of your backup. It's getting back up and running when you need to. And that's where things like snapshot offloads, especially to our FlashBlade system, our fast file and object system, becomes critical to be able to get back up and running as quickly as possible. And we'll continue to build that up. Next slide, Nihal. And we partner with all the major backup providers out there, whether it be Cohesity, Commvault, Rubrik, Veeam, Veritas, as well as others. Right? We have a great relationship with these third-party suppliers whose their focus is to be able to do this, these backup and restore processes, and they partner with us on our infrastructure to make sure that it is fully integrated, easy to set up, as well as easy to restore when you need to do that. So now I want to jump ship a little bit and talk about consolidation, right? Everyone's looking at jumping over to S4 HANA, right? A number of customers have not gotten there yet, and you're trying to, that 2027 deadline is coming, and you're probably in the planning phases. If not, think about getting into that planning phase. And SAP has done a pretty good job of consolidating their modules and their databases, but your SAP landscape is still going to be a multitude of databases, right? You're still probably going to have your BW, and you're still probably maybe having a CRM, as well as your S4 environment, as well as probably other databases around that, right? All these databases need to run on fast performant hardware, right? So we have seen our customers looking to consolidate not just at their application level, but at the infrastructure level as well, right? Give me infrastructure that takes up the same amount of space and has the same power requirements, but is bigger and better, and I can fit more on. And that's where we have really thought about how can we give more power to customers, less complexity, at the same size and the same power consumption of our products today, right? And that's where we were happy to release, I'd say about 2 months ago, right, Nihal? On the next slide, our FlashArray XL product. It is bigger and badder and faster. That's all I can say about it. It is higher performance to the tune of 70%, higher capacity within this 5-rack unit system, right? That's pretty small when you compare it to our competitors. And then just higher scale and better resiliency, right? You can put more workloads on this, saving yourself data center space, saving yourself power costs. To Nihal's early sustainability comments, right? You can now put more on less, and it makes it a lot easier to get your data center green using the Pure products. And on top of that, if we go to the next slide, Nihal, we've done a lot of work with SAP on certifying FlashArray XL through the TDI program, right? TDI is a very, very important program when it comes to your SAP HANA workloads. I remember when I ran HANA on an appliance back when HANA first went GA, and it was painful, right? Because you have this one appliance system that is dedicated to that one HANA database, and it's like, all right, what if I have 20 HANA databases? How am I going to scale that out? TDI was really the first thing that allowed customers to now pick and choose their infrastructure, their providers that they like to work with. So we respect this program a ton. We will constantly make sure that we are TDI certified on all of our storage products that customers run HANA on. Because we realize, right, these are your most demanding critical workloads. ECC, S4, BW, these are the things that run your business. And being able to run that on a high performance system, you demand the performance, your business demands the performance, especially as you get to some of those seasonal events, right? A retail Black Friday, or, I used to work in a company where 80% of our volume came through in the last 2 weeks of the quarter. Now you need to be able to scale up performance when things like that happen. And FlashArray XL is completely built for that. And if you want to get more details, there's a link here to a blog that just really goes into a little bit more detail about what the FlashArray XL is giving us, and how we TDI certified it, and what it could possibly give you to your SAP environment. So Nihal, I talked about a lot of business outcomes, right? That customers can experience when they use Pure Storage for their SAP. Can you just talk a little bit more about what are we doing with Sapphire, and how can customers learn more, and how can they come talk to you and me, who are going to be at Sapphire in person? I might add, an in-person event. I'm so excited to see 3D people again, and not just these two-dimensional webinar Zooms.
Yeah, great stuff, Ryan. Thank you for covering that. And likewise, I'm also very excited to be at this in-person event. I hope everyone has registered for Sapphire. We're looking forward to seeing you. Just a quick recap: Sapphire runs from May 10th to the 12th. It's in Orlando, Florida. And we're looking forward to seeing you all at Sapphire. We're actually a platinum sponsor at Sapphire. We have physical booths where you can come and meet our SAP experts. You can also schedule meetings. There's a link that I've provided in this slide where you can actually schedule the meetings. And most importantly, we also have a customer-led session. Ryan and one of our customers are going to share insights on how you can kind of master your SAP data growth. We've, during this presentation, we talked about the explosive data growth, and we talked about the focus on outcomes, right? So we're going to share some best practices. So it's a session you cannot miss. So again, look forward to seeing you all at Sapphire, and we look forward to engaging with you at Sapphire. Okay, so we've shared some insights with you. Hope you found them very helpful. I'm going to leave you with 3 action items. Would love for you to schedule some meetings with Pure so we can continue the conversation with you in person at Sapphire. We also have a IDC white paper on how to lower costs for your SAP HANA environments. It gets into the details of what we discussed with the Intel opt-in based direct memory cache. So I encourage all of you to download that white paper. And last but not the least, we have a one-stop portal for all Pure solutions for SAP. It's purestorage.com/SAP. Encourage you to check it out. We've got great solution briefs. We got design guides. We've got blogs and a lot of great content. So encourage you all to take a look. And once again, want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to watch this webinar. We hope the tips that we provided were very helpful, and we look forward to seeing you at Sapphire. Ryan, it looks like we've got some really great questions come in, so we'll just address them as they come in, right? So again, for folks who have any questions, please submit your questions, and we hope to also continue the conversation with you post the webinar, so you can also send in your questions after this webinar. Okay, so let me go to the first question that's come in. It's for you, Ryan. Okay. My company uses HANA replication for high availability and disaster recovery. How does Pure's Snapshots compare with HSR? And do you have storage-based replication as well?
Got it. Wow, good question. So, yeah, this is common, right? HSR, HANA system replication is used in a lot of different SAP environments. It replicates at the memory layer, right? So it's a little bit easier, especially for HA. It's a little bit easier to fail over because you're not waiting for the storage to load up into memory. Snapshots, I think, are great for things like DR, right? Because because of the way that our snapshots are mobile, right? You're able to take a snapshot, you're able to schedule the snapshot and have that run every 5 minutes and replicate over to your DR site. But we also do have a couple other replication technologies as well. We call that, so the snapshot replication, we call that async replication. We also have synchronous replication, right? So similar to your synchronous memory writes, we have synchronous storage replication called active cluster. Right, so that's really taking all the writes that come into your HANA database and synchronously writing them to another volume on another flash array. Obviously, there's some performance concerns there, right? You want to make sure that you're not hampering your HANA write times. So we don't see that used as common when it comes to HANA. But we also have what's called a near synchronous replication as well, active DR. I've seen this one start to gain a lot of traction because it essentially is shipping writes over to a secondary storage system, but not waiting for that response back, right? Not waiting to see if the storage system acknowledged that they got it. So you're usually within about a 1 to 2 second lag on data getting over that. So I've worked with a few customers now that have used HSR for HA, right, to be able to do quick failovers on the production side. But things like active DR at the storage layer to move to a DR site, because our active DR technology also makes it really, really easy to run DR tests, right? It's so hard to run a DR test. When I was in IT, we did it once a year, maybe, and it got canceled more often than we did it because it's just a pain to run, right? You need downtime. With active DR, you don't need any of that downtime whatsoever. Because our replication continues running it, behind the scenes as you're testing. I'd love to get in more details, but yeah, we definitely have storage replication technologies, and they do complement HSR as well.
Great stuff, Ryan. Another question is coming for you. This one's more around advice and strategies and best practices. This question is about a company that recently started their S4 transformation project. And the question is, what advice would you give them, and especially the SAP HANA and basis administrators?
Got it. Yeah, that's a good one too. So a lot of companies are in this point right now, right? Not waiting until the last minute to get to S4, right, is a smart choice. SAP's moved this date a couple times already, but I just feel like this is going to be a hard date for them, right? You need to get to S4 by 2027. So a lot of companies are thinking about this right now and looking for advice, right? I ran giant SAP projects in the past, and they're not easy. What I like to tell customers is obviously I come from an infrastructure background, right? So make sure you are investing in infrastructure that not only is going to help you get your project live, but continue to support your project once you go live, and isn't just a commodity, right? Storage sometimes people think is just it's just commoditized, right? As long as the lights are blinking green and I've got storage, that's all I care about. But I think we've shown through some of the capabilities we talked about today, snapshots, fast performance, the Intel Optane, your storage should work for you, right? And it should make your life easier when you're doing an S4 project and supporting an S4 project, as well as when you're live on S4. So really think about that decision. It's not an S4 project is usually usually the time that customers are thinking about their infrastructure. Really think about your infrastructure and find something that's going to work for you now and in the future.
Excellent advice. I see the next question that has come in that I can take. It's basically asking, does Pure offer any TCO tools to kind of help validate some of the storage for SAP HANA infrastructure? And certainly we do offer TCO tools that can show savings, for services such as Pure as a service, and it shows very detailed analysis on savings that a customer can achieve. But really, I think the proof point, or the best proof point that we've found, is directly from customers. We recently commissioned a study by IDC that went out and surveyed our SAP HANA customers, and the results were pretty astounding, in terms of the different savings. And we have a white paper documenting these savings and what the strategies were employed. So highly encourage folks to check out purestorage.com/SAP for details around this white paper. And again, I want to thank everyone for joining the webinar. If you do have any questions post-webinar, we'd love to continue the conversation with you. And we hope to see all of you at Sapphire. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Okay, unfortunately, Nihal and Ryan have to run, but thank you guys for a really informative presentation and for all of your great answers in the Q&A session there. We know that we had a lot more questions than we could get to in the Q&A session, but we will be passing those on to Nihal and Ryan to follow up with you. Finally, it's time for the $300 Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner of that $300 Amazon gift card is Harold Welch from Utah. Congratulations, Harold. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Pure Storage for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for your great questions. That concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day, great weekend, and we will see you next time.